Hello, everybody, and welcome to All Knicked Up. It is Wednesday, May 24th, 2023. I am, of course, one of your co hosts, Eric, sitting here, kind of sad right now because we don't have any basketball to watch as Knicks fans anymore. As we know, the Knicks have been out of it now for a little bit over a week and a half or so. But we still, of course, have a show. We still have to keep talking because, as we know, the NBA is now a 12-month out of the year sport. So let me bring Ty in. Hello, brother. How are you?
What's going on, brother? How you?
I'm good. I'm wearing the Carolina blue polo today.
North Kakalaka in the building.
Yes, I was actually in North Kakalaka this past weekend.
Nice.
Visiting a friend over there, and went and saw Fast 10, and
all right.
there was this there's all this other stuff going on too. Hit up a few breweries, ate too much bad food that that the South is famous for. So of course,
there's no other good food but bad food.
Exactly. So I got to do that. It was nice to get away for a weekend, just about 3 days.
Nice.
Just kind of get away and decompress for a little bit. Nice. So got to do that. But we don't have basketball. Well, we do, but we don't have Knicks basketball, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of sucks. Kind of sucks right now.
You would think we were used to it because we usually don't have it anyway. But it was the year that how we did. It made it more sad.
Yeah, I mean, 2 out of the past 3 years, though, like this year and then 2 years ago, we were in the playoffs. Although that one I'd rather forget. Yeah. So that one I would rather not remember. That was a bad playoff experience. But at least we got around this year. I could kind of look at things in a different light now that I've had time to remove myself from it. And I think for the most part, we could probably say this year was a success.
Absolutely.
They exceeded expectations. I had them at 45 wins, max. So I was close, but
I had them at 40.
I don't even think.
So they really my expectations altogether.
Yeah, so we do have teams still playing. Of course, we could very quickly touch on what's been going on in the playoffs. Denver swept the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals. I kind of wish Jonathan was on with us today so we could have a little fun there.
Pickleball. Designer clothing going on there.
Yeah, I don't know what that was all about, but he couldn't make it. So it's just Ty and I. But yeah, if the Lakers are gone, LeBron James is gone. I do have to give him credit. He played his game 4. He was excellent. Like
absolutely.
And it's amazing that a guy who's going to be 39 years old is still doing what he's doing. We both have thoughts on why that may be, but we won't. Regardless of what we think, he's still out there performing at a high level. But you just see it. You just saw it. Like as the game went on, he obviously wore down. He can't do the same thing for 4 quarters anymore. But hey, first half, I think he had 30 of his 40 points. He had 30 or 31 of his 40 points. I mean, he left it all out there. I can't say anything about him. You know what, man? Anthony Davis is such a weird player.
Very weird.
He's such he's their best defensive player. So he always has that to do. He always brings that part of it when he plays.
Exactly.
And I mean, Jokic, as great as Jokic was in that series, after the first 2 games, he wasn't as efficient as he had been.
Yeah.
So I think there was an adjustment made, and I think they tried different things using leverage against him with the smaller defender, and then having Anthony Davis as a help defender, which probably was the right move to make. But he's such a weird player. When you look at his stats and you'd say, wow, he was excellent. Like you'd think he had an excellent series. But it's like that alternating game thing with him, right? Like one game he's great and the next game he's not. Can you recall I can't recall a player like him in history that I can think of. A player that great who has those types of games.
Do you want me to delve into the KY of collegiate ranking? We have
Oh,
we for those that didn't know, that does mean Kentucky. It can
yeah.
mean other
I'm
things.
not talking about jelly.
Yeah, we're not talking about jelly. It's jam don't. But you may get screwed. I must say this: if you have some of these players from this rooted team, as far as Kentucky graduates or whatever you want to call it, their program, we have one in New York where we don't know where he disappears from time to time, and quickly also disappeared. You know, there seems to be a growing theme about the players that come from Kentucky. I mean, Maxey seems to not have it, so I can't say him. He's still a
Well,
buddy player.
Booker.
Booker tends to bring it. I mean, other than when he's not injured, Tyler
Right.
Hero, we don't see it. Bam Adebayo, we don't see it.
Right.
Cat, we've kind of seen it, disappear
Yep.
from time to time. It's something about those guys. I don't know. I mean, I'm tongue in cheek a little bit about it, but in the same sense, it's more evidence of that program tending to, as much like we say about Villanova. Villanova's resume is these guys are dogs when they come into the league.
Right.
Non-quit, you want them on your team. Whereas the Kentucky guys, it seems like they can fade in and out. I can't say about John Wall. His was injuries, so really not the thing with him. Is just more injuries with him. But man, the Kentucky guys, we've seen Kevin Knox. I mean, I'm telling you, there's a history of this with that program of guys that come into the pros, and I don't know, they get
Maybe it's just the Knicks players though who are really crappy because
maybe because we found the worst ones. I mean, on the planet now.
Yeah, I mean, because Anthony Davis, I mean, for most of his career, has been a great player.
Absolutely.
You can make the case when, if all things being equal, if you look at with regards to like game, defensive impact, and athleticism, that he might be the best big man if all things are equal, right? Obviously, Jokic is and Embiid, but neither of them have I would say, the athletic profile that Davis has. So he probably skills-wise would be the guy you would consider as the best center in the game, and he has had definitely moments where he's played like that. But it's true. For us anyway, like you mentioned, Randall, Quickly, Knox, we get the one thing that those Kentucky players are good at, which is inconsistency. That's definitely what we get.
It's almost like a bad joke when you think about it for the Knicks.
I mean, we gotta laugh, right? Because if we didn't laugh, we'd cry. So you gotta laugh about it.
Yeah,
but man,
I don't know. AD for me, it's always just been a weird thing. I mean, we know about the injury history. I mean, we know the nickname Street Clothes.
Yes.
Where that all stems from. Maybe that does play a part, that he seems to be definitely Mr. Fragility. I mean, they call him Mr. Glass behind his back, maybe in his face. Anybody watch the whole Shyamalan series about that? But I don't know. I mean, maybe he's on the team, with LeBron. Maybe he defers a little too much because it's not in his personality to be as forward and bold. Maybe that leads to him being sort of passive. We've seen other players do this. James Harden is infamous for being just checking out of games mentally. I've never.
Yeah, that I don't get.
I never understood how guys could be at this level with guys across from them that want to basically snatch their heart, and to know that they are willing to sit there and be a spectator sometimes on plays and not be engaged and not want to try. And I mean, it's maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a generational thing. I don't know. Maybe it's one of those things. If I'm leading, I pump my chest out a little too much. But if I got to go in battle, I don't feel like it. I want to take my ball and go home. And that's, I mean, technically, when you look at AD in this series, and no, this is no bashing the Joker, but he shouldn't be better than AD. When AD is engaged with the talent level that AD has, that should have been the battle. That should have been the battle. Because right now you're going to probably see, if Miami happens to be the team that wins the East, you're going to see him and Bam battle, and that should be pretty. I think that's going to be a very good matchup to watch. But I think Bam would go out and give a little bit more of a, maybe have a little bit more of an edge. He's a Kentucky person too, which is funny enough. But maybe he comes out with a different approach of wanting to prove he's better. And I don't know. It's just, AD, but we've seen it with LeBron teammates. These guys come in and they tend to, we talked about it off camera. These guys, they come in and they are okay with being second fiddle. Outside of probably Wade, he was the only guy that was like, "Give me the dang on ball. I'm better than you. I can close this out. Let me close out if you don't want to, But I don't know. It's a very weird thing with Anthony Davis.
It really is. Because again, like I remember when he came into the league, I was like, wow, this guy's going to change the position. I thought he would change the center position.
Yeah.
He's such a tremendously talented guy. And obviously injuries, whatever. Some guys are just, their bodies aren't made for this. And he's been able to fight through it and have a very good career. But, skills wise, there's literally nothing he can't do. So I'm like, why would you ever take a back seat? And again, maybe with some guys, they get a sense of deference to guys who are established or who guys are better than them. Even if they don't believe that the player is better than them, they know they're successful in their track record in their career. So it is strange that, especially with big men, with LeBron, all of them have regressed when they've played with him.
Well, Kristen before just now, he says they're all scared to outshine him, and
that's fair.
That might be something to it. I don't know. Maybe he's the big brother, and they want to be the little brother, or I think maybe they're afraid to maybe get out of line. I guess in the sense of like, which I've never understood to a degree, because they're going to get blamed.
Right.
You're going to get blamed. I mean, I don't think you go to Patrick Beverley route of thinking he's the equal to LeBron, because clearly he thinks that he's the reason they were going to win one way or another. But someone like Anthony Davis, he should have never taken a backseat to LeBron. If anything, he should have been a co-pilot. And I think that might be an issue of, I'm going to let him rock out and then I'll come in and help. You shouldn't be the help. If anything, at this stage of LeBron's career, he should be helping. He should be the help, and he can have his moments. He's already had his career. So that's the one thing I never understand.
Right.
He's not pushing. I mean, I always go back. My favorite player, I always tell you, was Magic Johnson. Magic was notorious for getting in Vlade Divac. That's the example I always bring up. Vlade Divac's face when he was being passive, and he's like, I'm going to keep coming to you because I need you. And that's the thing. I'm as great of a passer as LeBron is, and a great mind. He has a beautiful mind for the game. You would think that he would definitely say, AD, you're getting 50 tonight. You're getting 50 tonight, and all the rest of you guys get the hell out of the way. I'm getting my man off with the 50 piece, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to support him if you need me to close out. He didn't do that. Even in this game, the last game, as spectacular as he was, I thought the better strategy was to get the guy going that doesn't get it going, that you need to get it going.
Yeah. Specifically when Jokic had 5 fouls. He picked up his 5th foul at one point, and I'm like, why are they not exclusively going to Davis to get him to foul out? Like, why would you not? I don't know. Again, rookie coach to Darvin Ham. I don't know. I mean, obviously you could say LeBron's probably the coach of the team, but Darvin Ham, new coach. Maybe they had a different game plan, but whatever. They're out. There's rumors being talked about. Both of those guys, we'll discuss that a little bit later. The rumors revolving around LeBron and Anthony Davis. But the other series is still ongoing, although Miami is up 3 games now to 1. Jason Tatum last night had another great performance, saved the Celtics. Jaylen Brown was pretty good too. I mean, they had a pretty good team effort. I think they hit 19 or 20 threes or something like that. They hit a lot of threes. I know that, which they hadn't been doing all series, and which has been Miami's game plan for every team they've played.
Yeah.
Us, Milwaukee, the Knicks. They were just like, if you hit threes, you're going to beat us, and no one's been able to do that. So that's another strange series because, again, on paper, talent wise, Boston's a better team, yet here we are. Again, we talked about him, and he's going back to the same thing. Eric Spoelstra is the best coach to me in the NBA right now, and the fact that he has this team one game away from their second finals in the past 3 years. Last year they made the conference finals. I mean, it's an amazing feat, and maybe we are underselling the talent too much. I don't know. Maybe we don't look at them as having that A-level talent. Jimmy Butler's fantastic. He made all NBA, but I never look at him as that guy, right? Like I don't. I don't know if you do, but I don't. Mentally, yes, but not
Yeah, yeah.
game wise. But other than that, they have Bam. I mean, they're doing this without Tyler Hero, who's their second leading scorer, which is
It's amazing.
it is. It's amazing.
It's
So
amazing.
that
Butler,
series again, yeah. Go
but
ahead.
Butler's been that guy. I mean, for them, I think it's just a mental edge they feel like they have with Jimmy on their squad, and he's not going to back down. He's got all dog in him. He's got it all in his blood. But it seems like they believe. I mean, when you look at the construct of that team, we have a bunch of G leaguers and non-drafted players that are killing it. I mean, literally, and I mean that's a credit to the org. Not saying that the talent's not there, but you have an org that the one thing that Riley has always been great at was getting his guys, the guys that fit what his team is about, the mentality. They come in, you're going to be in exceptional shape. And there was a story going around about Riley. They wanted to, I guess I'm going to believe this to be when LeBron was in Miami, and someone came into Riley's office and asked that they fire Spoelstra, which I guess Riley kind of listened. And then the next thing was that Riley went downstairs to, I guess, and called the whole team out and said, never come in. I'm more than sure it's not as clean as I'm saying it. Never come in my office and ask me to ever fire a coach. Your job is to play the damn basketball and not manage the team. And it kind of just set the table about Spo being his dude, and this is how we do things around here. So, I mean, if you kind of follow the tail of the tape, somebody did leave Miami abruptly, kind of, and went back home. So we can, add in that we believe probably it was LeBron asking for Spo to be fired, but
I
Riley stuck
well,
to
I
his.
remember when, yeah, I remember when they first hired Spoelstra. LeBron and Spoelstra had words.
Yeah.
I remember that. So yeah, who knows if that relationship was ever mended? But yeah, it was kind of surprising. Not totally surprising, but it was kind of shocking that LeBron went back to Cleveland when he did.
Yeah.
Especially since Chris Bosh was still,
Yeah.
they're still good players, both of him and Wade was still there. So it was kind of an interesting choice. But maybe if you ask LeBron in the quiet moment, maybe he'd be like, yeah, that probably wasn't the best choice, even though he did win a title for Cleveland. So
yeah.
According
to him, he doesn't lie about stuff. So
yeah, I saw that. I saw this post game presser.
It was such a weird, reckless post game.
Anyway, so enough about the rest of the NBA. Let's talk about the Knicks. And we did have news this week about somebody, and of course, we're talking about Carmelo Anthony has decided to call it a career after 19 seasons in the NBA. He put it out on social media saying that, it's time to hang it up and to pass on what he has learned and the gifts he has garnered by playing basketball to his son.
Yeah.
Which, if anyone has seen Keon play, it's like watching a clone. It's so ridiculous. But
definitely.
Yeah.
I've been talking about Keon for a minute.
Yeah.
When watching the footage, I said that out of all the second generation players that we see of great, usually what happens, all those that really follow this like a nerd, most of the time when your father's great in the sport, you kind of suck. If you come in as the second generation, there's never been like an equivalent, and we can't go Steph Curry because Steph is better than Del Curry. So we can't go there. A comparison would be Seth Curry would probably be Del Curry because they're the same kind of roles that they kind of play for their team as a complementary piece. But usually you don't see you go near the father's throne, put it that way. We know Michael Jordan's kids absolutely were terrible basketball players. unless the rumor is Jimmy Butler is his son. But other than that, rumor's been going around crazy now. But anyway, but needless to say, most of the time they don't. But I've always looked at Keon and I'm like, this kid can probably be as good as his father with the right, if he has the mindset. It's going to be about mentality with him because the footwork and the skill set to me is already in planning.
Yeah, even if you watch highlights of Bronny as well, like he doesn't have the same type game that LeBron has. Bronny is much more of a shooter. He likes to shoot the 3-point shot, which a lot of guys do now. He reminds me more of Steph than LeBron, if you're gonna believe that crazy, But yeah, Keon, you could tell that he watched Carmelo and he patterned himself after his father's game. And yeah, man, just the way sometimes when I see footage of him shooting, I'm like, wow, that's so eerie. But yeah, so Carmelo, I'm a bigger fan of his than you are. So I've been a bigger fan of Carmelo Anthony's than you have. I understand his limitations. I always have. I understand. Sometimes he was allergic to playing defense. I will say that as well. There were times he did not want to bring it. Although when he did, he usually played very good defense. So that was kind of maddening, right? Watching him play. But in my lifetime, I've seen tremendous scorers in the NBA. Michael Jordan, obviously, Kobe Bryant's another one, Bernard King, guys who just knew how to score. And I put Carmelo, especially in his prime, right up there with those guys. Tremendous footwork. The guy had moves upon moves, counters to every defense that tried to stop him. That spin move that he had when he was younger worked. Sorry, Julius, if you want to learn that one because Carmelo's worked. He was just a tremendous scorer, tremendous offensive player, and he was a joy to watch. That's my biggest live sporting event. I was at the Garden the night he scored the 62 points. I was there. I have never seen somebody excel in person, excel at their job to that level like he did. And for me, it's one of my favorite sports moments I've ever had. And he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt, but everyone gets into the NBA Hall of Fame. So that's not such a.
I'm going in next week, so
yeah, we'll probably go in too.
We'll go. We want to
come. But yeah, that's really not an accomplishment. I mean, the blemish he has, obviously, he never won a ring, but he's not alone with other great players who haven't won rings. We've talked Patrick Ewing, obviously, Charles Barkley, Karl Malone, John Stockton. I can go on and on. Dominique Wilkins. I can go on and on with guys who never won championships as great players. So the last thing I'll say about Melo, and then I'll let you talk, is in an era where nobody wanted to come here, he did. Right? In an era where all these guys had the opportunity. LeBron had the opportunity. Wade had the opportunity. Bosh had the opportunity. All these great players had the opportunity to come here. And Carmelo wanted to be a Knick. Whether you buy into he was born here. He lived here till he was like 5, and then he moved. I don't really count him as a native New Yorker, even though that's what his birth certificate says. Michael Jordan is too then. He was born in Brooklyn. Like, give me a break. But he wanted to come here. He wanted to take on playing in this market and trying to win a championship in New York. And for me, that's something I will always, always respect him for. Amari Stoudemire too, don't get me wrong. Although I think he just wanted anyone who would pay him. But still, he came here too. So, and for the first, I want to say 3/4 of the first season here, he was getting MVP love, right? So he chose come here. Carmelo chose to come here, and for me, I'll always respect them for that.
No, definitely. I mean, this is me being transparent about Melo. I know most people, we talk about me not loving Melo. Actually, I do like Melo a lot. When Melo came out of Syracuse, for edification here, I don't buy any other team's jerseys. That's the whole thing. Anything that you see me wear, you ever saw me with a hat on, it's going to be a New York something. I don't go out of state. I'm a New Yorker. I always say that. I'm going to have a Yankee hat on. I'm not the biggest football fan, as everybody might know, but if you rep the city, I have a Giants and a Jets hat. I represent where I'm from, New York. The only other hats that I've ever bought was a 76ers hat and a Nuggets hat. And that's because I'm a fan of AI and I was a fan of Melo. So if you ever, but I don't have those hats anymore. But I'm just saying those are the only outside of New York hats I've ever bought. And obviously, I'm not a Denver person, so it had to have been because of Melo. I loved him when he came out of Syracuse. I thought that he was going to be that dude, like the best player in the league. I didn't like when that draft came about and everybody's LeBron, Wade, Bosh. I'm like, Melo, that dude. Why would you skip over Carmelo Anthony? That dude's a complete beast. So he's always a favorite player of mine coming out of, like I said, the collegiate ranks. I think for me, and maybe it's a selfish thing for me, I wanted him to be better than LeBron because I thought he could be. That was the thing that I disliked about him. Not personally. I'm like, dude, this dude should not be ahead of you. If you engage with being able to just pass a little more and rebound a little bit more, you should be the MVP of this league because you had the talent, in my opinion, to be the best player in the league because you couldn't stop him offensively. He was just ridiculous. There was no counter. What kind of defense you're going to send to a guy who can hit shots with three guys on him? Not much. He can post. He was a three-level threat. There was no jokes about Carmelo Anthony. The knock to me was well-rounding his game. I thought he was capable of being a passer like LeBron. I thought he should have been a double-double person too because I think he could be a 10-rebound, 28-point scorer because he's got the body and build for that, and he likes getting at the boards. We know his profane recant when someone is coming to get the rebounds. He let them know this is this is the rock is mine. So
yeah,
I've always thought that he should be 27 to 28, 10 boards, 5 assists, and whatever else he has to do after that. Those are flat out MVP numbers. And It's not because I think that he should, it's because I think he could. I think he could have been the most dominant player in the league. I mean, I don't go about so much with the defense. Not everybody wants to play defense. This is not a league of great defenders. This is not the 80s. This is not the early 90s. Guys, it's just more offensively oriented players who believe that their job is to go out and get buckets and not be the defensive. They think that job is for someone else. And maybe I'd be the same way. If I'm scoring 35 points and keeping us in the game, do you want me to defend somebody also? I mean, I can see where that can come off. It's like, I'm not doing that also. You got other guys that can do that. But I just thought he was way more talented than he may have given himself the opportunity to show because he's a very talented scorer. But I've always believed scoring is the easiest thing that most of these guys can do. If he had just well-rounded his game, I don't see how he was killing LeBron early. In those rookie years, the matchup was LeBron was getting burned by Melo, because there's footage of him coming to Cleveland and just hitting the last shots over, and he looked like he got up for those kind of games. That dude was so clutch. And it's like, what is missing? I never understood what was missing about his game where he was not in the finals. I mean, could you imagine Melo being in the finals? That could be a beastly performance if he had just gotten there. You mean to tell me that dude's not going to win MVP of a finals where you can't stop him? A defense can't stop him? Come on, man. When he first came to New York, my favorite moment, what was it? Was it in Detroit or Memphis? Can't remember the game. And he says, I do this. He hit the last shot. And he looked over to the guys and I was like, damn, he does do that because that dude is a flat out killer. And the first round series against Boston, when Stat went down and was hurt, and it was just him and Jared Jeffries. Literally, Jared Jeffries can't catch a cold, let alone a pass. Apparently, but Melo was a whole beast in that series. You have a team with Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and all those guys, and they threw everything at him, and it was bucket. And I'm like, you can't even stop this dude. So the Knicks probably didn't do him any favors, which they've never done any of their superstars any favors. Right. And because of that kind of left Melo with a bad bag because we're coming off when Melo came here. He came basically as the consolation prize, unfortunately, to LeBron and Wade.
Right.
So, he's coming in to a dynamic where he got traded here, obviously. So it became about the assets given up. And then on top of it, the pairing with him and Stoudemire. It was broken. Those two guys kind of played the same kind of game or got to occupy the same kind of floor.
And
So
they
the
were
Knicks,
always hurt too. Like he
and
was
it was always
that was always hurt. Yeah.
stats hurt. So it falls on Melo to be the kind of player he's not.
Mm-hmm.
He's not that dude that's what I'm asking him, what I think he was capable of doing. But that really wasn't his wiring to be the guy, I'm going to come be a playmaker and get other guys shots. That wasn't his game. I think he was capable of doing it, but it wasn't his game. And that's okay. But I think that's the thing that kind of got lost in his brilliance was the fact that he came here and the expectations were high because he was thought to be the replacement to guys we never got or never probably had a chance of getting in the first place if we believe the rumors. So, he was left with a bad bag. And then, the Phil Jackson era came in and that just was like a hot damn mess, with him going to the media, talking about your players. Clearly there was just a huge disconnect, and infighting, which has been pretty much what has been the thing in New York for the longest time, as we as fans know. So, maybe Melo had something to do with it. Maybe there's some underlying, but he may played a part in it. But unfairly, I think that Melo, while being in New York, kind of became a scapegoat in a lot of ways for people to criticize him for being something that he was not. And the Knicks never gave him but maybe one team, which kind of fell apart due to age, where it would have made sense for his talent level and what he needed to succeed by having Jason Kidd, Rasheed Wallace, J.R. Smith. Who else was on there? The Hamburglar, what do I call him? Raymond Felton. So yeah, that's who White Castles I call him. I call him a lot of things. But needless to say, they had a veteran team that can kind of corral. Had they kept Chauncey Billups, we might be talking about a whole different kind of era in New York where he would listen. He respected Chauncey, so it wasn't like Chauncey would have waved him off and they would just had a fight in the locker room. Like, this was not your shot. But I don't think he would have even thought twice about Chauncey challenging him to be a different player. So, you bring in a young KP, Melo's got to tutor him. That's not the ideal matchup either. You got two wings and he took him under his wing also. So it just left a lot of bad taste in New Yorkers' mouths, I think, about Melo that I think was unfair in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Kristen left another comment, which is, I think a lot of people wanted to see him brought back this year. I know we had talked about it. He might have been a good influence actually for RJ Barrett. Who knows what would have happened there, but
Randall too?
Yeah, for Randall as well. Yep. I do think, obviously the one thing, and he's talked about it and he's actually apologized, was the Jeremy Lin situation when Linsanity was going on. He did not handle that well. And I kind of see where he's coming from. He didn't handle it the right way, but I could kind of understand where he was coming from with what he said. I remember when they put that contract out there, he was like, it was ridiculous. I remember him saying that publicly, like, ridiculous offer. And I was like, wow, you're really going there? So that was the one time I was kind of like, Melo, what are you doing? But, in the heat of the moment, people say things, and he felt a certain way about his place on the team. And I get it. He's a proud guy. He believed he was the best player in the team. He was. He still was. Even though Lin was fantastic, he was still the best player in the team. And that was probably the one thing about his career here that I'm kind of like, I wish he would have handled that differently.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously you brought up Phil Jackson. There was friction there as well. And that's an instance where I don't think Phil handled it correctly. I think Phil was a little, wrong with how he handled it. But regardless, like I said, he's one of my favorite players of the last 25 years. Mm-hmm. I always enjoyed watching him play. He was, man, if you like scorers, he was the guy you could just sit back and be like, wow, because he had so many different moves. And it was just a joy to watch him. So, I don't think Carmelo's going to see this, but Carmelo, thank you for your 7 years here. I think it was here for 7 years. 7 seasons here in New York, and just for entertaining us for all that time. It was a fun ride. I'll say that was a fun ride.
Yeah,
So it begs the question though, and we've heard of this being talked about. So we've talked about it a little bit yesterday, but we didn't get too in depth about this actual topic. So there's been talk that the Knicks might retire his number 7.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been a lot of discussion about this on sports talk radio. There's been a lot of discussion about this on social media. I'll let you go first. I gave you my opinion, but I'll let you go first on this one and tell me, do you think number 7 should be retired?
Well, let me just backtrack. Who my biggest argument before any of this about Melo was, I always thought Bernard King should have had his number retired, and it never happened. I'm an old school guy, so I always felt like Bernard, although his stint here was short-lived in a sense because of injury, his impact as a Knick player and the altering can be a Knick uniform. So I've always been a person that believed that he should, be honored as well. So that brings it forward to Carmelo. I'm like, well, if you're going to retire Carmelo, you should, retire Kings. Those are the only 2 guys I can really think about right now. And I do believe futuristically, if we're going to scope down if Jalen Brunson stays on the trajectory that he's going, he's probably going to have his retired if the standard changes. We discussed in our private chat. I said typically what it's been outside of Ewing, which you brought up, it's been people who won championships.
Right.
The Knicks have not raised any number in the rafter other than guys that have won chips outside of Patrick Ewing. So will the Knicks really shift their standard as far as how do you get up in the rafters? And so far, none of the Knicks that we grew up watching, other than Patrick Ewing, has not gone up in the rafters. So I'm looking at Carmelo's stay here in New York. And what he had 2 playoff appearances?
I think 3.
2 or 3. The furthest he got here was the second round. We know about.
Yeah, the furthest he got was the second round, yes.
Hibbert's ridiculous block. I mean, for a franchise that's been starved and who hasn't done a damn thing in a long time, clearly Melo's presence here brought back some sort of stability and some sort of pride back to New York as far as, getting into the playoffs and having at least a star level talent on our team. I guess the question is, if the goalpost is championships or all-time leading scorer, so now where are we pulling it back to as far as how far you get? Like now we brought up Allen Houston the other day, and I was like, as soon as you heard me, I was like, I did this, couldn't do it. But technically, Allen Houston has gotten further than Carmelo has. When you think about the shot in Miami, they don't get to the finals without him making that shot. He's been here for that run. If he's not getting it, then Melo's second round can't get it. And, Allen has impact in the history of New York. I don't know what category he leads in, but I know he has. He's one of the. Is he the scoring? How far is he?
He's the fourth. He's the 4th all-time leading scorer in franchise history, behind Ewing, Frazier, and Reed.
So now we're saying, can we put Melo ahead of Allen Houston? Now I went quick on Houston. I was like, in the chat, I was like, nope, because I went right to King. So now we're going to Melo. He's done less than Allen Houston. So if Allen's not up there, I can't put Melo up there because Allen's been, his success level. I mean, do we want to say he was the best player on the team? I guess that's a question mark. He did have a better team, clearly, Allen, with having Spreewell, having Ewing, albeit he got injured, having Camby, he's had LJ.
Larry Johnson.
Larry Johnson. So the Knicks had a really stacked team for that time. So Melo never had that team other than the one time, if you want to declare, against Indiana in the second round. That was the best team probably built around Melo. So Allen Houston wasn't the best player, but his stats say that he was the 4th leading scorer all time in Knick history. He's been to the finals as a Knick. He's hit big shots as a Knick to get them where they are. and he's a staple inside of the actual organization still. Probably arguably one of the best jump shooters I've ever seen, period, point blank, not even close. I can't put Melo. I can't put him because now you're disrespecting Allen Houston, who has a better history of success in New York as opposed to Melo. And like I said, the Knicks did him no favors by building crap around him. So it's not totally his fault. I'm just saying, if we're going to raise Melo, we got to go and raise Allen Houston in order to raise Melo. So that's my no for Melo. Not because I don't think that he was not a great player or whatever, but I'm just going by the standards been laid. It's been championship, all-time leading scorer, all-time leading a lot in the franchise in Patrick Ewing. And after that, there's been a hellified drought. When Patrick retired, I mean, we're talking about 20-some years now, 30 years almost.
Yeah, no, it's been about 20. He retired, I think, in 2000 or 2001. So, yeah, 22 years.
So we've had no player in almost 20 years, 22 years, that's had an impact. So they're saying Allen Houston over the last 20 years, even with those, he didn't deserve to have it raised up. So how can we put Melo up if we can't put Allen Houston?
Yeah, I mean, that would be the one guy who I'd have a problem. If they did want to do Melo, I'm like, well, you have to do him too. Like, you'd have to, just because, like I said, he's fourth all time behind 3 Hall of Famers, and though they're the 3 best players in the franchise's history as well. So if you're gonna put anybody, he deserves to be next. And you can argue about if you liked him, the impact he had. The guy was, like you brought up, he hit the big shot against Miami on that run, and then he had the 32 points in Game 6 to clinch the Eastern Conference Finals and put the Knicks in the finals. Yeah. He was great in that game too. So he had moments as a Knick as well that were, that could stamp him into that record book.
Yeah.
It'd be a tough. I love Bernard King, don't get me wrong, and if he was here longer and was dominant, he would be all over the record books as well. So I know that for a fact. So I wouldn't have a huge issue if they decided to do something like that, because I know how great he was when he was healthy. But just because of the time frame, it'd be really hard to have him in there if they wanted to start doing this. But you're right. The standard has been, outside of Ewing, who leads the team in every statistical category that exists, outside of him, all the other guys won championships. So it's a very hard standard to look past, to put someone like Carmelo Anthony up there, even though talent-wise, he might be the most talented player they've ever had.
I think that's not. In all honesty, I mean, I didn't see Pearl and Frazier play. I mean, I know Pearl at the time was thought to be, they call him Black Jesus for a reason. They thought he walked on water, literally, and he was a beast. When he was in Washington, he supposedly, basically changed his game to fit into a team concept, because when he was as a Bullet, he was a all beast against the league. Guys hated seeing him come.
He was fantastic.
Coming to the gym. So, but I'm going to say if we remove never seeing certain guys like Pearl, and Walt seems like he was more of a defensive-minded person who had the capability of having great scores. Obviously he had one of the greatest game sevens of any sport. Clutch moments. But it seems like his everyday game wasn't at that level of, where he was, you were starstruck by what he was doing on the floor. Melo, talent-wise, outside of, I ain't going Vaseline here. If you win KY, going Vaseline. To me, Stephon Marbury was the best player that just wet the bed in New York, because talent-wise, I didn't see a flaw in his game other than here, which is, why does it always got to be New York? Why we always got to be cuckoo?
I know.
But between him and Melo would be the guys I would say, I don't know who's the better player, but their talent level is just right up there. Steph should have been a mega star, given the position he played and his capabilities. Like I said, I don't know. Someone point to me, if you're in the chat or whatever, you think a weakness Steph had other than his mentality, and his penchant for putting people in his car, people are interns. I mean, other than that, Talent-wise, that dude was a whole beast too. So imagine him and Melo could have played together. If
Wasn't that far off. I
it too
mean,
far off,
it was not that far off.
people imagine those two, man, talking about a problem that they can just the games would have morphed very well. They were both bucket and clutch getters. So you wouldn't have to worry about who's going to take the shot. Either guy kills you in the end. So just imagine if you could have paired those two together. That would have been an awesome tandem. But I digress. It's Melo, Steph would be the only two I would. Steph to me would be the second, maybe 1A to the talent level. But Melo might arguably be the best talent we've had.
Yeah, it's an interesting argument, I think, and I'm gonna be. Excuse me. Supposedly, there is a um growing push within the organization to retire his number. I think it would be a mistake again. And if they did do it, and I'm Allen Houston, I'd be like, seriously, like, like,
What about
look at the scoring list. If just look,
I'm
look
right
at that
here.
and tell me what. Yeah, literally, I'm on one hand. I'm 4. See, 4. That's me.
Oh,
Yeah, I would totally be like, okay. And since he's like in the organization as he like
yeah,
works
yeah.
here, I'd be like, okay, we could do that, but you better do mine too. That's it. I
I
want mine up there as well.
I think that would be, unfortunately, for Melo, it'd be a PR stunt. I hate to say it that way.
Oh, it would
This
be. It totally
this
would be.
this would be a complete, let us have an iconic moment for a guy that the league probably looked at that they wronged in a way. It was a little murky and muddy how it went. They know people love Melo too. I just think it would be a bad look for the Knicks to run and all of a sudden want to retire Carmelo Anthony's jersey when you were trying to kick him out. You literally wanted him gone. For whatever reasons that relationship soured and they were trying to find an exit plan. I thought it would have been a graceful moment if they would have brought him back. Even as a somebody who sat on the bench to mentor the players. Clearly, the players showed him love when they saw him in the stands. Brunson hugged him like he was his lost puppy. He hadn't saw him in 50 years. So you saw guys. They love Melo, and I don't think Melo. We had that talk about the locker room presence. We were talking with John about it in our regular thread. I've never heard anybody say nothing bad about Melo as far as in the locker room. Guys seem to gravitate towards him. In fact, one of the issues apparently with the Knicks was they thought he had too much of a voice with KP. KP was going to Melo more than he was going to anyone else. So that relationship kind of the Knicks were a little bit disturbed about him having that much impact on the guys in the locker room. So I think that was another reason why they wanted him gone also. So he's beloved. They should have brought him back in that capacity. Maybe he does hit a bucket against Miami, to solidify that he was his time here. And then maybe you can do that whole retirement thing and say, well, we had Carmelo Anthony here. He helped us win a game in the playoffs. Maybe we're still playing too, or he would have definitely had a shot. He could have definitely hit some shots.
I agree. I mean that was one of the things that I thought they could have done this year. We talked about it, the three of us. I mean, me, you, and Craig talked about it more than John because John just is really not the biggest fan. He'll tell you so differently, but don't believe him. He's not the biggest fan. He's not the biggest fan of Carmelo.
I agree.
And look, I agree. The thing about isolation players is, I'll say this: when they're scoring, it's fantastic. Like when they're on, it's great to watch because you're watching one guy completely dominate the game and it's fun. But when they are not and they're shooting 4 for 20, it is impossible to watch. You get so angry.
Absolutely.
So I get that argument, and I get that towards the end of his time here, he probably held the ball a little too long, things like that. Sure, 100%. I definitely can co-sign that. But man, he was just he was just I was so happy when they got him. I didn't like the trade for him though, which I've talked about many times. I thought they gave up too much, which they did. Jamal Murray still playing for Denver. Thank you very much. But let's not talk about that. That was not his fault. Again, we could argue with that. That was not his fault. The
No,
Knicks
no.
did not have to do that trade. They decided to do the trade, and the rest is history. But Carmelo, thanks again for the memories. Good luck in your retirement.
Good
And let maybe the Knicks will draft Keon in 4 years or so when he's available. That would be a cool little thing going on. Right? That'd be very cool. All right. So it cannot be an off-season show if we do not talk about trade rumors, because it doesn't matter when the Knicks season ends, the next day trade rumors always begin. It never fails. So we're going to go down the list because there are names we've heard, names we've discussed. We kind of touched on this last show a little bit, but we didn't get too in depth on it. So the first one I'll go with and I'll talk about is Joel Embiid. We heard after Philly lost, the Knicks were still playing. I think they played a couple more games or so. And after they lost, they actually lost the following game. So it was around the same time. But we heard that his tenure might be done in Philadelphia, that he might want to leave. He might not want to, if Philadelphia is starting to rebuild, he might not want to be a part of that process. So the Knicks came up as one of the destinations. However, not our Mark Stein, but our beloved Mark Stein squashed that. And he said, not right now. He said, right now, that's just in the minds of Knicks fans and bloggers and all of us who want Joel Embiid to come here. But there's nothing really to it yet. He said yet. So let's talk about this insofar as fit. Now, don't get me wrong. Fantastic player, obviously just won MVP, one of the best players in basketball. I'm not going to take anything away from him. But when I look at fit and how the Knicks play, or how the Knicks might be trending that they're going to play next year, I don't know if he'd be a good fit here. What do you think?
I'm going to say that, well, it's two-part about it. I think Embiid is a fantastic player. Clearly, he won MVP. My knock on Joel is that I think Joel should be the best player in the league every year. Given his position of play, and given how physically gifted he is, and he's just a big man. I don't think there should be a year where he's not MVP, other than the fact that the writers decide to skip over him because it's redundant. And in saying that, I don't know if him coming here makes the greatest amount of sense to maximize your ability to win a championship. And I know people are going to say, oh, look at the talent. He clearly is better than everybody on the Knicks. And yeah, of course, he's MVP. That makes a lot of sense. But how would they utilize him? He likes playing like a wing. And I always think that won't benefit anyone but Joel, as far as him playing as a wing compared to where he needs to play, which would be in the post. If you're going to have a Jalen Brunson and the dynamic that he brings to the table, Joel has to be a Shaq. He has to be a Shaq type player that you post up, because he's not gifted enough to play like Jokic plays, as far as being able to pass out and find cutters and all that stuff. So you've got to be spoon-fed the ball, and then you have to have shooters around him to maximize out his talent. So when he doubles, he has to become an intelligent player that says, let me go to that guy, because that will just open up the floor for me now in the next 2 or 3 possessions to dominate. Because now when you collapse, you don't want to collapse on me. Now you got to play me one-on-one. Now I can send out the kill notice, because I'm going to burn you. I just look at what we have here now, and I guess it does matter who's going in the trade if it was to happen. But I don't know if he's the perfect fit here, as far as matching who our best player would be that we would probably keep, which is Brunson, and then pairing him with Joel Embiid. And people might say, oh, well, it's a point guard and a center. It'd be a great mix. Yeah, if you're playing a traditional center position like you used to. Now these guys want to play out on a perimeter. They don't want to, post guys. They're not searching out the double team in the back down. Joel faces up. He does a lot of facing up. So does that help the Knicks? Does that with a guy like Tom Thibodeau, who's not a gifted offensive savant coach. He's just absolutely below average, in my opinion, offensively. I mean, sometimes his defense is a little suspect with his drop coverage. I mean, we can't even say he's a lead in that because he couldn't adjust in Miami to say maybe
That's
he's
true.
doing that. So you're relying on players like Brunson to be the genius, and you're allowing for other guys to kind of coach themselves. Like he has a hard time convincing Julius that he should be in the paint. He just does. He stays on the wing all the time. And everybody who has any grain of sense, no, Julius's better way of causing damage is down in the paint. It's never been on a perimeter. I mean, when he was successful in not OKC, in New Orleans, it was because he was going down, eating barbecue chicken, as Shaq says. So we have Embiid. Does he fit here? I think it's a big question mark because maybe with a different coach, maybe with a different array of talent around him, maybe it works. But you got to have a coach that has a game plan to get both of those guys to max out their talents. And I don't know if he's a perfect fit. I don't think he's the perfect fit at all like that.
Yeah, and also when you think about how Tibbs likes his centers to play, he's not like big on offensive centers being big time scorers, at least on the teams he's had. Maybe because he didn't have those type guys, I don't know, but the other thing with Embiid that always scares me is I know he's been healthy now for a while, but that foot injury he had when he first came into the league, big men with foot injuries, they don't usually age well. So I'm not saying he's not going to age well, but that'd be in the back of my mind the entire time. If I'm going to make a trade to bring him to my team, that would be something I'd consider. The next name, which is a guy who we've talked about for years and years, he's a local guy, grew up a Knicks fan, would be a cool story, is Karl Anthony Towns. Now, based on talent, yes, I'm in. Bring him here. I love the guy's talent. I have since he played in Kentucky.
Yeah,
he's
fantastic. Always.
His mentality sometimes, that's something that we have to question. Again, you brought up the Kentucky thing before. He's kind of one of those guys we lump into that group. I think he's a little immature at certain times. Don't get me wrong. He's a fantastic player, like I said. And if it was just based on talent, yet bring him here. There's nothing he can't do. He shoots the ball well. He can pass it. He can't rebound when he's motivated. He led the league in rebounding a few times. Like he can play defense again when he's motivated. The other issue with Towns is we've already been through this before with him and Thibodeau, and it didn't work out so well. So there's a lot more things for me to give pause when I'm looking at Towns. Just based off of that thing, without even getting to the court, like just knowing the history that he has with Tom. If Tom's going to be the coach, there'd have to be some kind of meeting of the minds. The other thing is he's like getting ridiculous money. He's supposed to get like $50 million or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it would take a ton to get him here.
Yeah.
While I think he'd be schematically, I think he'd be a good fit. I think his game would be a good fit for what the Knicks like to do. I just do not see it happening. That's my opinion. I do not see this one happening at all. So,
well, from what I'm hearing through all those rumor mills and listening to other pods and pundits or whatever, he has been Leon Rose's number one target for a long time. He's wanted Karl Anthony Towns. That's been who he's been after, who he wants to demand a trade. From what I understand, it's always been Towns. I think we always thought it was like Donovan Mitchell because clearly Donovan Mitchell made sense, local kid, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it has been Karl Anthony Towns, from what I'm hearing. He's been the guy that they've been after. That Leon believes will make his crowning achievement. I have question marks about Cat. All of what you mentioned, and mentality, the contract. I do think the fit is a lot better than Julius would be here. If you can hold on to certain pieces, you can have Mitch man the 5 and put Towns at the 4, and life would be great. He's a stretch 4. He can he's a bucket getter from far out. He won the 3-point contest, so that lets you know he can shoot the ball. He's a capable post player also.
Yep.
So we did not lose. When we'll backtrack to Embiid, the issues we have with Embiid fit, just do the complete opposite. Cat would be the great fit, because of the dynamic of his game, and being able to allow a guy like Jalen Brunson can now operate. You can't go and cheat off of him. He can actually send the ball out to Cat, and Cat's gonna shoot like Devin Booker. So it's not like we're sitting here worrying about a guy who can't hit a shot. We're like, he's gonna kill you either in or out. So that's the dynamic that a guy like Karl Anthony Towns brings to the table. I do buy the immaturity thing. I think that's been a lingering issue, which leads into having professional issues. I just think that he is also like what we say about AD. When we talk about top players in the league at their position and where they should be elevated as far as a superstar status, is there anybody better at power forward, talent-wise, than Karl Anthony Towns? The answer is probably no. Absolutely no. And it's like between him and AD both are probably 1 and 2 talent-wise, base talent-wise. If you believe AD's a power forward, you're talking about those two dudes are equally yoked in a lot of ways, and they should be punishing teams. That's how good they are. They should be like in MVP voting every year. Also, much like Embiid, I said, all the same way. It's just always been about their mental approach to the game, and what are you going to be are you trying to get at it, or are you going to get wrapped up in the little nuances of the game that take you away and kind of distract you? I'm telling you, the Kentucky guys are kind of similar because the distractions, they go off on tangents that don't go off in the game as competitors. So I would choose him over Julius, but I'm not choosing his contract over Julius because it could look really ugly down the line. When he comes in and he starts bombing out and becomes complacent and drifts, now you're stuck with a dude that makes $50 million a year compared to a guy that makes $28 million a year and don't know where their heads are at. I mean, he was just in New York throwing out pitches for the Yankees. So clearly, I mean, we have Donovan Mitchell Part 2 during the summer. I like his fit better. I do like his fit. That is just, I have so many question marks about him that probably have nothing to do with basketball, which is scary enough.
Yeah, like I said, the contract extension he's eligible for would pay him a starting salary of $50 million. So that would start in 24-25 and then for the 4 years. And then he'd have a player option his 4th year for $62 million. Jesus, that's a lot of money. Right? Yeah, that'd be a tough pill to swallow. Again, unless he maximized his talent, then you'd more than happily pay for it. But that's the one thing you're going to have to question with him.
Guarantee you a championship.
Yes, that's basically.
He would have to win it. I hate to say this about it. He would have to win a championship in 2 years. And why I say that for is when you start getting into that contract and it gets into that depth of 50 plus million and fans start looking at that on the books, he has a 2-year window to win a title before they go, what the hell did we buy? I'm just telling people that's how we know how this machine works. They want to. Julius doesn't have a bad contract.
He doesn't.
He has one of the better contracts in the league. RJ has a discounted contract. Brunson has a discounted contract. Like
Brunson's actually descends.
Yeah, so the Knicks have done a fantastic job with the cap situation. That's why they can't bring in a guy who is making that kind of money and does not produce something, because Knicks fans are complaining about the guys I mentioned. They're complaining about RJ. Oh, we got RJ. We just extended him. Like, well, we really didn't extend him like a real rookie extension. In fact, it's got so many incentives that he'll never hit. So he's getting paid literally not like a max rookie. He's getting paid like a veteran that's been here 15 years. That's what he's been getting paid like. So he's not getting a big check. Julius is not getting a gigantic check. And Brunson is going to be a discount towards the end. So, you bring in Karl Anthony Towns and make it $50 million.
He'd be making this. Him himself would be making, I think, the same amount as RJ and Julius together.
Is it? You don't do that. I don't.
That's what it's crazy when you think about it. And again, I've always been a fan. I love his talent level. I think he has the ability to be one of, if not the best players in the league.
Yeah.
But man, there's something again with him up here that just stops you. Like I watch games at times and I'm like, take over, like just do it.
Do it.
You can take over the
Do it
game.
now. Do it now.
Yeah, and he doesn't, and it's annoying. And again, he already signed that extension, so he's got his supermax. So the Knicks would have to trade for that salary. They're not signing him. They'd have to trade for that salary. That's crazy to me. And again, as much as I like him as a player, I hard pass for me on Towns. The third guy I'm going to mention, who's been rumored in the past, and I think it's a little bit more realistic, and it would be short term because of his age, is DeMar DeRozan. Because of everything that's going on in Chicago, and he would be a very good fit whether they play him at shooting guard or small forward. Him and RJ, you can switch around whatever you want to do there. I think he'd be an excellent fit here. For one of the reasons is for RJ Barrett, because a lot of people, and John has said in the past, like he feels like that's the type of game RJ could have. Yeah. So it might be good to have him in the locker room to kind of, get that out of him or work with him or just play with him, and RJ can learn by playing with him. But I think in the short term, he would be a very good presence just overall, veteran in the locker room, all-star level player still gets you 20, 25 a game. Kind of like, he'd be kind of like our Jimmy Butler, maybe not as good, but or as dynamic as Jimmy Butler could be, but that kind of a player pairs well no matter what situation you put him in. I think he could play with anybody. So he'd be a good player. Again, for me, it's just about, all right, how much are we paying him? Yeah. What's the salary? How do we get him here? Who are we giving up to get him? Those kinds of things with DeRozan. So I believe you're probably with me on this, though, with him.
Yeah. I mean, I just look at DeRozan just being all the things that you mentioned. I mean, a good veteran presence, very professional. I watched an interview with him. I think it might have been on Paul George's pod. I'm not quite sure. But one of the things he was talking about was the passion of players. And he's like, some dudes just don't love the dang on game. He didn't say that as I said it, but basically, it was great to hear him say that, because that lets you know he loves doing it. He loves playing the game. That it's in his blood. He goes out and he competes. He's a professional. He's everything to me when looking at the dynamic of where the Knicks are. The Knicks do need a veteran all-star guy. It was supposed to be Julius, and clearly it's not. Brunson is probably the understudy to be the veteran dude. I mean, but he's still young. I think Brunson's like 25. So he's still not that vet. I just think that he would be just ideal for all the reasons you talked about, helping RJ's game out, being a locker room presence, still being able to play at a pretty high level given his age. His salary is about to come off the books. That helps. It's a bunch of pluses adding DeMar DeRozan. Like I said, there's people always say about, we've called him the Frozen. He's had issues in the postseason, as we know. And that was one of the clapbacks that John had about, this guy's broken down at times, but I always say, who do you trust to make their averages in the playoff, him or Julius? Who do you trust to get to making their season's average in the playoffs? And I trust DeRozan because of his ability to hit shots. He's got a killer mid-range game. One of the few that have that type of repertoire now. So, yeah, you're not getting a guy that stretches the floor, but you got a guy who can finish at the rim and do everything else that you need. And he can still defend. And my swap would be taking him for Julius. I know people are like, oh, why would you do that? For all the reasons that I just said, the playoffs are still not going to be a time where you're going to keep up for Brunson. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, he has no help. We're not going to say that if DeMar DeRozan here, unless he's like injured, that he has no help. And you can switch around. Would it kill people if RJ played a little bit of the 4? Wouldn't kill nobody. People talk about his defense being an issue. Now he'd be playing guys that are more slower foot. I always like versatility in my lineup. If I'm a coach or a GM, I'm trying to get guys that have the ability to, if you are going to switch, that you're not losing anything, but also you can play them at 2 or 3 positions and you're not losing anything. If you got a bunch of guys that are like 6'6", 6'7", or 6'8", and you can move those guys around and you got more athleticism, Problem with Julius, he's not athletic. That's part of the biggest issue. So, he's just a brute. No, and there's no offense how I'm saying that, but that's his style of play. I'm moving him to get DeRozan, and I told you I want Elmer Ford, so that would do it for me.
Yeah, I mean, an underrated part of his game is his passing. He's a fantastic passer, so that's another element that he would bring. That if Brunson's not on the floor or someone else, right? Like you can have him handle the ball and kind of be the playmaker and things like that. Again, a little bit like Jimmy Butler does for Chicago.
Yep. That's a good.
I mean, for Miami.
Miami. That was a good comparison you made. Jimmy, he would be our Jimmy Butler. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be the case. So yeah, I'm down for DeRozan at this stage. Again, it depends on how much we're going to pay him and what we'd have to give up to get him because he's still under contract with Chicago for another year. But I think we could. I think they could figure something out if he really wanted to leave there, depending on their situation in Chicago and what's going on with that team. So the last guy, we kind of touched on him last week. And I've read a lot of things about this in the past couple of days, and I kind of didn't think it was really a possibility, but it might be more of one than we're talking about. And that's, of course, Kristaps Porzingis. Again, we talked about this last week. It would be a great story if he came back, after growing up. I think we could say that he grew up when leaving New York. He obviously never wanted to leave. He still talks about being a Knick and be playing here in glowing terms. And he's coming off his best season as a pro. So I think, there's a lot of good things there. Yes, there always comes the injury bug with him. You never know when that's going to creep up. It's very possible that he could get hurt at any moment. So that's always the hard thing. He has been an injury-prone player. I'm not going to you can't deny that. That's all that stuff is out there. It's easy to see. But I think if you got him, if you made that move, you'd have to probably say to yourself, the maximum, you're probably going to get 70 games a year out of him.
Yeah.
Right. You have to knock off, I think, 12 off the top and be like, yeah, he's probably not going to play all 82. Nobody does anymore.
Nobody does.
But yeah, except Julius, which is one of the good things he does. Yeah, he does play every game. But the other thing with him is I just don't know Washington's mindset. They're such a tough team to read and kind of say, okay, yeah, because if it were me, I'd be like, okay, Beal's back now. We have this guy. Let's see if they can play together.
Yeah.
Like for a full season and see what they can give us. That would be me if I was Washington. That's how I would look at it. They just paid Bradley Beal, but that's the other thing. They just paid him a big sum of money. They paid Beal a lot of money. Do they want to pay Porzingis that amount, especially if he has another season like he had this year? I think next year is his final year of his contract. Do they want to pay him again? That's the question. You don't know. So that's the one reason why I think he would be available. A lot of the deals I've seen have Mitch Robinson going for as part of the trade for him. My thing was always I want to see them play together. You too. Yeah. We've talked about this in the past. It'd be cool to see them play together. So I don't know. Sentimentally, yes, I want this trade to happen, and I would drive whoever it is to the airport to make it happen. But this one, I am not too sure how realistic it is, and I'm not really sure if there's desire on the Knicks side to do it. So that's my take.
Well, I think Washington has an issue too. I don't think someone's in charge of Washington right now. They don't have a GM or president or something like that. So
right, yeah,
that's one of the things that's going on with them. I mean, I'm a KP fan since we drafted him. I mean, I loved his tenure here. I thought it was just I'll never forget that dunk, that follow-up dunk he did in Toronto, which came out of nowhere over like three guys back, and I'm like sitting there, I'm like, well, damn, somebody's in New York finally. New York got somebody. You got a breaking news?
Yeah, apparently Washington has hired a GM.
Oh, from my list,
well, they've hired a president. They've hired a president.
Okay.
GM Clippers GM Michael Winger has agreed to become president of Monumental Basketball, which delivers him full leadership of the Washington Wizards.
Wow.
Winger will also oversee the WNBA, so he might be hiring a GM.
Okay.
To work with him, but they do have somebody in charge there now.
Oh, wow, that's crazy. We're just bringing it up, and now it's there. It's came to fruition.
Yes. So
I mean, like I said, KP had some spectacular moments as a player in New York that I'm very fond of his game, hitting the threes, giving the what is that Full Metal Jacket look, with the crazy eyes. He was clutch. Like he was built to play here. That's the one thing I think Knick fans. I know his brothers, and plus the Knicks probably screwed up also. We can do 50-50 split. Phil was Phil. So I don't know who to fully blame. I think you can just split the hot dog down the
Right.
middle with both of them. Um, I would welcome him back. Injuries and all. I just think that it's always great to see talent you draft be here during the bad and the successful times. And that's something that he was not afforded. I mean, obviously, that 1 year before he got injured, he was, people questioned his ability to stay healthy, and he had a great, phenomenal year up until he got injured through to Giannis. Giannis actually, I think, caused that injury when he went up for a dunk or whatever. Um, he fits here. He can play here. He's never. If anybody's wondering if he can play here, then you just don't like the guy because he played here. He played at a high level at times. He's had, like I said, some spectacular moments. The question for me is like, what role would he have here? That's the key thing. Like, who are you replacing, or are you coming in to play off the bench? I don't know, because you have this coach that we have that has a stubbornness about pecking order and who has been here longer and who are you trying to develop. I mean, I doubt they're trading Mitchell Robinson for him. Mitch is willing to do everything Tibbs says, and that's really what it is. He wants a center that, like, essentially KP is a power forward, one in the center. I just like that dynamic that him and Mitch, you wouldn't score a damn basket if both of those guys are patrolling the paint. The things that we get on
that's
Julius
was my
about,
always thing.
the things you get on Julius about, you don't have to worry about KP. He definitely hustles. He definitely gives that third or fourth effort. He's going to block shots. He was always a timely shot blocker. He had a beautiful game. I loved his game. I mean, I know people say, oh, he needs to go in the post. I'm like, let Slim Jim stay out on the perimeter. He's got that pretty locked down. I don't need him to be a post player because he's 7 foot. I just need to have him play like the great player at his position and max out.
He's gotten better there, though.
Yeah, I don't need him. Nobody plays in the post anymore. They just don't. Everybody shoots threes and runs back and down. Nobody even finishes in the lane on a 3-man break. So this be with needing that in his game. The injuries is the only concern I've ever had about him. Can he stay healthy enough where you can benefit from his skill set? That's the question. But
that's fair.
I can guarantee Knick fans this. The dude would come here and he would not fizzle. He's not going to fizzle out. He's not going to flame out. You're not going to say, oh, trade him again. He comes here, he's coming to want to stay here for a long time. He's going to want to retire here if he comes back, because that's really, he knows that he got bad advice, that it wasn't about his basketball. And that family can give you bad advice. Anybody got family out there? Sometimes it's because all kinfolk ain't kinfolk, so all skinfolk ain't kinfolk. Yeah, that applies to everybody. You don't got to just be black to say that. Not everybody, not all skinfolk are kinfolk. You think that, these people got your best interest, and because they share the same birth mother and father, that's not always the sense. He got bad advice from his brother trying to be more of a star than he was. And the Knicks obviously do nobody any favors in his organization. Steve Mills was running the joint, and he got bad intel. So it's just a mixture of somebody jumping the gun and people emotionally getting tied up into ego more so than what made sense for that guy as a basketball player and what made sense for the Knicks as an organization. They should have never traded him. They should have just said, you're here under contract. We will iron out whatever's going on and figure out a solution that fits us both. Your brother can go kick rocks. You're not getting a position. We're not playing those games. We run the organization, and you're under contract. You want to avoid your contract? You don't want to do that. So you're going to stick here. We're going to find a plan, because he would be playing with RJ. That's really what it came down to. They would have drafted
Yeah.
RJ. It would have been him and RJ. I think he'd have been kind of happy having RJ as a sidekick during that time and build around, and you would be talking about a whole different Knick aspect as far as that. So bring him back. Bring him back. But you got to figure out who you get rid of. And we all want Julius gone. It's probably unlikely that he's going to go in that kind of trade, unless it's like for KP and Kuzma. I would take that any day of the week. If somebody wants to throw those two together and bring those and give Julius and take Emmanuel quickly while you're at it, I don't know why New York fans are so enamored by that dude, but I'm sending him on the Greyhound. Used to get work out of town on Greyhound. Isn't that what Lil Kim said? Well, he can find the work and go down
Yes.
to DC and hang out, whatever. You and Bradley Beal can just chill. Because I'd rather have that combination of KP and Kuzma as opposed to Julius Randle.
I mean, their contracts are similar. Him and Julius's contracts are similar, so it would be an easy trade swap to make.
Yeah.
With those two guys, and then you build the rest of the package around them. But man, my biggest fear is still happening is that the Knicks don't seem to think there's anything wrong with anything. And I know it's early still, but the Knicks, honestly, they're looking at this season. I'm telling you right now, they're looking at the season and say, "Oh, we won 47 games. They didn't have us. No one had us winning 47 games. We won the first round series. Nobody had us winning." That's what they're saying.
You're right.
That's my fear. That is what they're saying. They're not looking at this team and saying, "Look at the freaking 8th seed going to the conference final, going to the NBA finals most likely. The 8th seed is going to the NBA finals. A team that we right now, the Knicks, took more games off of than any other team that they played."
Yep.
Like, they're not looking at it that way because they don't measure. The Knicks don't have foresight. That's always been their problem. It's always, let's do what's good now, right this minute, right this second. They don't look down the road and say, we're building something. So that's my fear, that when I hear these rumors and I start analyzing them and I let myself believe for a few minutes that, hey, maybe this might happen. But then when I sit back and I really go back to myself, I'm like, who am I kidding? Like, this is not going to happen. And I love rumors. I love trade rumors. I love the GM. I've always wanted to be a GM. That's the one thing in sports I've always wanted to be. Any video game I've had, I've always loved the GM part of it, doing trades, drafting guys. I've always loved that.
Yeah.
But, man, I have a different mentality, and I think like a small market team. That's how I wish the Knicks were run.
I agree.
I wish the Knicks were run like the Thunder.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, I wish the Knicks were run like the Spurs. Those are the teams that I wish the Knicks were run like. And so when all these trades come up and these rumors, and I'm like, they're awesome, they're great, but are any of them going to happen? Like, I didn't know the thing about Rose, that Towns was his crown jewel that he wanted to have. Again, I love Karl Anthony Towns' talent. I think he has all the talent in the world. But can he play here? Is he a guy? He's a New Yorker. Yes, he grew up in the area. He knows the area. But still, is he built to play in front of that crowd? You know, sometimes the way he reacts to fans, and I don't know. Like, I don't know if he's that dude. So, KP, I know he's that dude. He played here already. He loved it. Right? Like, you know, he can play here. So that's the difference. The same draft class, which is crazy. But that's the thing. Like, you look at both of those guys. If I had to choose, I'm going to take Porzingis. I know he could do it.
He can do it.
But this is not. Yeah, he would be. He would be cheaper because he hasn't signed a supermax. So he would definitely be cheaper. And he's not even eligible because he hasn't made all the NBA teams and all the other components that go along with that. But yeah, so again, talking about all this stuff is fun, guys. I love talking about the offseason trade rumors. There'll be more going around. I'm sure if Boston loses, we'll start hearing Jaylen Brown stuff. And
they've already that out already.
Right? Like, it's crazy. It's Jaylen Brown will never play for the Knicks unless they sign him as a free agent, guys. He is never going to play for the Knicks.
There's never going to be a trade that happens to make that. I mean,
right.
You can't be delusional like that. That's in a conference between two rival. I think they forget that the Knicks were a rivalry also of Boston. I mean, it's not probably as pronounced because it was in the 70s, but they're not going to. they're not going to do us any favors, and nor would you want to do them any favors. Why would you want to,
Exactly.
build up their treasure chest of assets? So yeah, the best thing the Knicks could do is really play a patient game. If you want to sign those kind of guys, because you're talking about the Donovan Mitchells and also about Jalen Brown, they got to come via free agency. You don't trade for them. Karl Anthony Towns is not going to be available anytime soon. As far as being off,
It would take
free
so
agent
much to
wise.
get him.
So you might see. I've heard a rumor about Golden State with him also. So I don't know. Maybe that would be something.
Oh, I didn't even bring this one up because it was just a crazy rumor. Like, there's no way there's any beef to this. Jordan Poole. Somehow the Knicks are being linked to trading for Jordan
Are
Poole.
you serious?
I am serious.
This is Mr. Punch Buggy himself?
Yes. There was a rumor I read, and it was probably like from one of these fake fan blog sites. I was scrolling through just the news and I saw that, and I didn't even give it any credence. But that was the name I saw. I'm like, Jordan Poole? Like last year, yeah, I would have traded for Jordan Poole. This year? No thanks.
Does he come with the stick over his eye or without the stick?
Yeah, he's the action figure that comes with like the frozen peas to put on his face.
With the eye patch. I mean, I don't know about. It's really funny with him, because someone even mentioned Klay Thompson also, which I thought was just one of the. It's like, why would the Knicks sign? Stop. I mean, I know we want Julius gone, but stop. No, that doesn't make much sense.
It's so bad.
Jordan Poole would have been a great addition if he played at the level. He was an addition player. Like, you signed him in as a free agency, and now you brought that dude in because he can actually shoot pretty good. But he's fallen off the wagon so bad now. I think he's traumatized. I think he's really been traumatized by Draymond, and that supposedly came because he disrespected Steve Kerr. That's been the talk. Why Dre punched him, but I mean, we didn't know about it then.
Yeah. And he brought it up. Draymond Green basically brought it up when on his podcast or what he was being interviewed after the season. And he said, yeah, if that never happened, that incident never happened, I think we probably would have had a better season. So the fact that he addressed it publicly, and brought his name out and said the Jordan Poole thing, I don't think they just gave him that contract, so he's going to be tough to move. But I have a feeling if they can move him, they will trade him. I don't think it'll be to us. Yeah, but I have a feeling. Oh, other names, Bojan Bogdanovic again from Detroit. Like, his name has come up.
Like, why?
Just guys don't get played. That's all I'm saying.
Things like that make no sense. I really believe in my heart of hearts that the Knicks are going to get rid of Ev and D Rose.
Yeah.
I think they're going to keep the core of what they have still. I mean,
run it back.
Brace for the roller coaster. They may add someone like an Alec Burke back into the team. It's not going to be what we may wish for, because much like you said, Eric, they've kind of sat back and said, "Wow, look what we've done," and it's like, well, really, what you should say is, look what Jalen Brunson did by coming here, because your difference maker was the guy you signed, and you also traded for the right guy at the right time who can complement him in Josh Hart. Hartenstein,
someone he's familiar with,
had a great showing towards the end when he got acclimated a little bit more. But the Knicks are reaching a point, and I was going to do this, point this out on our fan page. But my question was, the Knicks are in a position where they have to be very careful moving forward, because we look at Boston, where they're going through. We look at Milwaukee. We look at Philly. The Knicks have to be very smart with their next moves that they tend to make. Because say Boston falls out and this somebody's getting moved. So Boston is going to have cosmetic changes. Milwaukee right now is facing question marks with who's the coach, whether Giannis is going to stop flirting with Golden State, because he's doing a ton of that right now. Where does that leave them? Do they sign Chris Middleton? Do
Yeah,
they
that's the other
sign
thing.
back Lopez? These are huge question marks in Milwaukee and a big part of what they do. They're not going to get free agents just running there, so you can just about forget that. So they present an issue also. Then you got Philly. If James Harden does go back, now that team is lessened. Now the Knicks are in a position where if they make the right kind of improvements, you can really be a real contender in the East. But the thing I don't trust is them seeing that saying, let's make the right calculated move that builds around Brunson with the right guy next to him and seeing where it falls, but not crippling our future to do it. That's what they need to do. But it's like, do you trust the guys to say, let me not? If they're not all in on trying to trade Julius Randle this year, and I know nobody can tell me, I know he's all-star, got all NBA teams. I realize, what are you trying to win? What are you trying to win in New York? Are you trying to win the back pages and him say we got an all-star that represents us that's going to play out in the playoffs? Or are you going to say we have Jalen Brunson who clearly has something? We have and what can we build around with him? Who can we add here to make this team move forward in the playoffs? Because it's not about the regular season anymore. Because you now show that you got to the second round. So guess what Knicks fans are going to want? An improvement. They're going to want you
conference finals.
Finals. So now they're saying, because clearly now everybody's going to say we got somebody, because clearly Jalen Brunson is somebody. We've got somebody.
Yes.
So now it's like, who else we got? And yeah, RJ's name is going to come up probably a little bit, but really the name is Julius. You need a second stud that can complement Rick Brunson, Jalen Brunson. Prove how old I am. I know Rick Brunson's father. But Jalen Brunson, you got to have someone that can complement him now. And you can only get that piece by moving the piece that we know don't fit in here anymore. You hear talks about Obi Toppin being traded.
It's like crazy.
You can't hold on to Julius Randle. You just can't.
It's crazy. We're talking about an all-star, all-NBA player wanting to move him. It is insane we're having this conversation.
It's the most insane thing, because I look at it when I'm saying, and I sound like I do sound like an insanity plea. I'm like, what about to trade it? I want them to trade a guy who's been all NBA twice in 3 years. And I'm like, he's got to go. He's got to go.
Yeah,
and I don't know. Like, do you think there's something they can change about him? Like change what they do with him to say keep him in spite of, and then maybe you can max out something to help him be successful in the postseason? I don't know what you could do differently with him.
Not like it's a small drop off. That's why there's a chasm. Like there's a cavern of difference between him in the regular season and in the playoffs. And again, for all the reasons we've said already, the ankle, they're going to bring that up. Yeah. I'm telling you, they are already making excuses in their mind for not doing anything with him this offseason. And my only hope is that he gets to the point where he's like, yeah, I don't want to be here. Or something like that happens where he's finally fed up and he doesn't want to stay here anymore because we don't appreciate him or whatever. Like his feelings get involved. That's my only hope about him getting dealt. Because they are not going to do it. You would think in my head, I'm like, well, Rose didn't bring him here, but Perry was part of that team who did bring him here. Mm-hmm. Like, and then Rose gave him the second contract. So he affirmed that move already. So now if they were to move on from him after 2 out of 3 seasons where he made all NBA and was an all-star, how does that look around the league? The Knicks care about that. They care about the cosmetics.
They do.
And you can't care about that. We've seen a guy twice now not be able to live up to it when it matters. So it's time. And I feel like we talk about him every week and it's terrible, but he's the only thing on this team that I really don't like. And that's the hard thing to say. Like I have issues with Quickly, but it's fine. Like he did show improvement. Maybe the playoffs were just too big for him. He has to learn. He's still young. I'm not worried about that as much. Right? I can give him a pass. I gave Julius a pass against Atlanta. I could give Quickly the same one this year.
Okay,
right? Like you give him another chance to prove himself.
Mhm.
But he's the only thing on this team that just infuriates me when I watch them. And I just know it just gets mad watching him because you're like, what is wrong with him when the playoffs come? What is not clicking in his head?
It's the
The
weirdest
game
thing.
it's the same game. It's basketball. It's not a different game.
Same.
Oh, dude.
I'm
So
telling
yeah,
you,
I don't know.
I've watched a ton of basketball, and I've never seen this what we got here. I don't know a player that
It's nuts.
all that I go, oh, he was great, but he just drastically fell off came postseason. This guy is an anomaly in a lot of ways.
I've only seen it in baseball again, and baseball is a completely different animal because
Absolutely.
it's a pitcher throwing pitcher has to throw the batter the ball, right?
Mhm.
And he
Yeah.
has to hit it. The batter doesn't have complete control.
Nope.
In the NBA, the player has the ball, so he has control. Like it's his, he has control of the game. So it's not the same thing. And
No, you're right.
man, it's so frustrating. And I really hope that they've learned their lesson. But man, we've been fans too long.
Yeah, I don't can't trust it.
And we know.
Can't trust it. I don't buy them having the testicular fortitude. I always like using that as a mixed Foley word. I don't think they have it in them to say, oops, dude, we love you. You've done nothing wrong for us. You've been great for the franchise, but we need to move on. And it would be in your betterment that we're going to send you someplace that we believe that you can thrive in, and we can also benefit from having your services here. It's nothing personal. You know, I go Wesley Snipes all the time in New York City. Nina Brown, he says, "This ain't personal, Tito. Tito, this is not personal. But you have to go. You know, we're going to send you to a contender. We're going to send you to someplace that are playoff bound where they believe that your abilities fit them better. But we got to move in another direction." I mean, it's not like you're saying the guy is trash. You're like, I think you have value that we can go get something for you that helps you out and helps the franchise because they want you just as much as we do. But it's not a perfect fit, and it's okay to testify that it's not a perfect fit, as opposed to just keeping the guy there and you let him have another season in the postseason like that again. Nobody's going to want him. And then what's going to happen? A bigger target goes on his back from New York Knicks fans that first tore down a poster. I can only imagine what's going to happen if he brings that back into a playoff again. Now, and in all seriousness, I'm worried more for him and his family because the Knicks fans are a little nutty, and people are not as. I posted the other day on my own personal page about the movie Falling Down. There's more of that now than when Michael Douglas did. So you got some unhinged people that have completely blamed him because now we're watching, and we've all done it to a degree. We've said, man, that dude showed up in one of these games. We would be playing Boston right now, and we can beat Boston. Every Knicks fan is starting to say that. So it's like, and where do we go back to? Like, if only Julius had hit his averages or went near his averages and gave Brunson a couple buckets because he's the all-star, we're talking about a whole different outcome possibly. So when you start doing the what if things, that's not favorable for that guy. I mean, I'm saying to a degree, I'm not going to go follow him.
I'm not going to.
But
it's basketball.
Those other planners, peanut gatherers that are nutty buddies, they're the ones that are starting to defame posters. And I feel for his family, to be honest, at games, because, you know, if he's bringing his family still to the game in all seriousness and people are pointing the finger at him only. Like RJ had a terrible game 6, but nobody's tearing down RJ's posters.
Right, because he was good pretty much for the rest of the playoffs, and they don't beat Cleveland without RJ. I mean, that's the truth. They do not beat Cleveland without RJ Barrett.
Yep, and and Julius, when I know this is 2 years ago. I think fans gave him a shot this year. He came back. He played better than maybe his most improved year, and it's still. But nobody was caring about the record. People were waiting for his postseason because they're like, if he makes up for that, and I said before, I thought he had to get our team to at least the Eastern Conference Finals to eradicate the whole thumb down thing. And when he started playing bad,
He had
We lose
one good game. That
one
was it.
game.
He had one good game. The same thing against Atlanta. He had one good game.
One good
He had
game.
one.
The organization, the front office got to say, is it a mistake or is it a pattern? Two, if you do it twice, that's a pattern. That's not a mistake. Twice is a pattern. Third time is just completely who you are. And I don't know. I don't think he deserves a third shot at that. They should see what's out there, and they should never be hanging up the phone if a team comes calling. And from what I understand, there are teams that are still interested in him. My fear is that they overvalue what he means to this franchise, and they're asking for a boatload in return. And clearly, somebody like DeRozan, that level of player with maybe another complimentary bench guy, I think is Julius's value. Period. I don't think his value goes beyond that because most people are going to look and say, "Yeah, we're going to bring this guy in for regular season competition, but if we have any plans for the postseason, he's probably going to fail us." So nobody's sending you a superstar.
No, man. Oh, again, I still can't believe we're talking about a guy who's been All NBA 2 of the last 3 seasons, and then it really is just boggles my mind. And we could talk about him forever,
And we'll probably do it.
and we have, and we'll probably do it. Yeah. So, but we're gonna shut this one down. But before we do that, I just want to bring this up. We're both fans of music. Tina Turner passed away today at 83 years old.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I know for me, from my childhood, like I said this before, Michael Jackson, Prince, Madonna, and Tina Turner were the 4 solo stars I remember from that era.
Big time.
And so it hit me a little bit differently when I got that news today. And I just wanted to, bring that up. I know this isn't a pop culture show. We'll talk about it on Straight Outta Gotham as well, but I know because both of us are fans of music. That she was an icon. I mean, there's no other way to put it. So
absolutely. I mean, when we think about the song, when we talk about champions in sports, Simply the Best is usually a song that people parade on as far as the background of watching people be crowned a champion or teams crowned champions. And we don't need another hero also. I mean, she's the soundtrack to a lot of iconic movies. And I mean, even her own, I'll never forget like Angela Bassett portraying her in that movie
What's
too.
Love got to do with it?
Yep. Love got to do with it. I mean, yeah, man, she was known for her legs. That was the thing. She was, she was a very nice looking woman of age, put it that way. So,
and I mean, we all know about her and Ike and the beating she took from him, and it's a crazy. She lived a full life. I'll say that. So. I don't know what the cause of death was. I didn't read anything.
I think she was ailing from what I'd heard, but I heard this maybe a couple of years ago. They were questioning her health at one point. Not that I know the specifics, but I did hear about that. So, I mean, this is shocking, but in a sense, I did hear something about her being ill at one point. I didn't divulge what it was, but it's been years. It's been a couple of years, so I'm figuring that sight out of mind, she might be doing better because.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, that's an incredible voice that our ears are lost.
Yep. She will be missed. But obviously, she has a long catalog. She has a large catalog of music. If people want to go check her out, so you can do that and listen to her. So, all right, Ty, tell them where they can reach you if they want to speak to you.
Check me out on Genius Scribble on Twitter, and also check me out on our Knick fan page, All Knicked Up, on Facebook. Putting some content out there as usual. Shout out to some of the people that have been putting out content for us also. I really appreciate that. Feel welcome to do that anytime. We love engaging with our listeners and people who don't think like us. We love to do that also. We don't always play football like some people, but we engage in sports on the Knicks fan.
Okay.
Come get at us.
I know. Pickleball. Okay. If you guys want to get in touch with me, you see my information. I do this wrong all the time. Right here at finally 33 is my personal account. At all underscore Nick underscore up is the show account. I'm getting a little more traction there, so I'm beginning to make some connections, and hopefully, I'm trying to see if I can get someone else to come on the show, break stuff down with us. Maybe someone who's a little bit more knowledgeable about the X's and O's of why teams do what they do than we are. So maybe I'm looking into seeing about getting that done. As I mentioned, I have a pop culture show called Straight Outta Gotham at straight underscore O underscore G on Twitter as well. If you're interested in pop culture, comic book movies, uh, TV shows, Star Wars, all of that stuff. We talk about that on Straight Outta Gotham. I will be discussing. We'll be recording soon, probably this week, and I saw Fast 10, so I'll be discussing that on the next show. Those movies are so crazy, but I will definitely be talking about that in the next show. So you can always check us out there. We release a show usually once a week. This week we're skipping this week because we're both busy, but we usually release a show once a week. It's usually on Saturday or Sunday. I mean, sorry, Sunday or Monday. So check us out. Check me out. Check us out over there. Me and my co-host Peter. We do that show. All right. So I think that's it. So unless you have anything else,
That'd be it, bro.
all right. So for Ty, I'm Eric. You are watching All Nicked Up. We'll see you next time.